Distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, this is going to be a session of practice more than the theory. So can we begin with a small practice, if you don't mind? Shall we all begin with a small practice? Okay. What we can do is that since we have all come back from different places, we need to relax our mind a little bit before the mind is ready to receive any more inputs, isn't it? So we'll do a small exercise of relaxation. Just follow the sentences that I'm speaking and accordingly surrender yourself to my instructions and you will feel happy, right? So loosen your body, remove any obstacle that is there in your hand. If there's a book or something in your hand, you can keep it down. If your body is too tight, just loosen it up a little bit. Relax. Try to relax your body. Adjust your body position in a relaxing mode. Slowly, gently, with lot of love, close your eyes. Close your eyes. If you want, you can remove your specs and close your eyes. Relax totally. Listen to the little sound around without verbalizing it. Listen to the sound around. The sound of the camera clicking, the sound of coughing by some people. You can just listen to it. Relax. No tension on your face. Your hands, your legs, your facial muscles, the frown of your eyebrows, everything is relaxed. Try to close your eyes as much as you can. Don't keep it open. Try to surrender in this moment. Enjoy the silence of this place. Now you will hear some beautiful sound. Just enjoy the beauty of music, rhythm. Enjoy the rhythm of the music and relax completely. Deepen the relaxation. Enjoy the relaxation. Experience the bliss of silence. Your mind is becoming completely quiet. Slowly you can move the hands and legs a little bit, and gently, with love, you can open your eyes. You can open the eyes now, and you can rub both the palm and do facial massage. You can rub the palm, and with the warmth of the hand you can do facial massage, including eyes. Your eyes are tired, so you can give it some massage and you will feel better. So good evening to you, friends. In the invitation card which went out for this lecture, there was a small mistake which was done inadvertently, but when I thought about it, it turned out to be very suggestive also. In my name, which was written Hasmukh, that's the name which was written properly in the main portion. But down below, while giving an introduction, M was put before S, so it became, instead of Hasmukh, it became Hamsukh. Hamsukh, Hamsukh. I thought about it. I said Hasmukh can be a physical quality of a person, physical outward quality of a person. But Hamsukh is a better thing. It is a functional, it denotes a functional quality of a person. Hamsukh. हमको सुख देने वाला जो होता है उसको बोलते हैं हमसुख. Who is that? Not me. Yoga. The science of yoga is something which gives us happiness, and that's why it is Hamsukh. It is not Hasmukh, it is Hamsukh, right? Very nicely, inadvertently, but I thought it's a suggestive name for yoga, Hamsukh, right? Friends, today I'm going to talk about yoga for wellness. So first of all, let's understand what is wellness, and let's understand what is yoga. Let me first begin by telling you what is yoga. Many of you know yoga comes from the root word yuj. Yuj means to join. Sanskrit word yuj, to join. Something which joins is yoga. Yoga is a process of aligning. It is a process of alignment. Originally it was discovered for our alignment with God. It was discovered for Jivatmas merging with the Paramatma. So that's why it was called yoga. But in the modern sense, one has to evaluate the science of yoga a little differently. What is the definition of wellness? Do you know? Do you know what is the definition which WHO has adopted for wellness? According to World Health Organization also, health is a combination of physical, mental, social and spiritual well-being. It's not only limited to physical well-being. Even WHO has accepted this definition. This definition is very suggestive. What it means is that the real health and happiness comes only when you have correct balance of physical, mental, social and spiritual being. Now this is the definition which WHO has given, but probably WHO has yet to acknowledge that the only technique which can bring about an overall health or well-being of a person in the world is yoga. No other technique. No other technique can bring about an overall well-being of a person. And that's why yoga for wellness, that is the most appropriate topic for today. If you want to be healthy, if you want to have well-being, then yoga is required. Friends, let's see how we want to connect. So when yoga means alignment, what is alignment? In yoga, we are trying to align our physical health with mental health with social health with spiritual health, and again spiritual health with physical health. So it's a alignment of all these forces, 4 types of well-being. And that's why yoga and wellness, they fit into each other very well. Do you agree or no? Yes? Right, okay. Let's see how the history of world says about the disease. 100 years ago, just imagine, what was the main cause of the death? Most people used to die because of epidemics, viruses, bacteria. Now because of scientific discovery, we have been able to get over all this, fortunately. Lot of things were invented. We had invention of antibiotics, antiseptics, various types of vaccines, because of which all these diseases are no more there. But today, who is number 1 killer? Any idea? Sorry, how many doctors in this group? They would all know. Okay. Stress is the cause, but what is the number 1 killer disease? Sorry? No. Anyway, heart ailment is the number 1 disease now. Now, these are all, whatever are the diseases now in which people are prone to dying, are all related to stress, isn't it? Stress is the main cause for all this. Lifestyle, these are called, very suggestively, they are called lifestyle diseases, lifestyle disorders. Because our lifestyle has become such that such diseases come to us. And that's why they are called lifestyle related or stress related diseases. What are they? We can see it here. Because of stress, we have got problems of obesity, high lipids, cholesterol, diabetes, hypertension. All these are stress-borne diseases, isn't it? Now, friends, do you know stress? We say that all these diseases are caused because of stress, but stress is created by God as a positive mechanism. Stress is a positive mechanism. What is the mechanism of stress? Let's try to understand, right? Suppose you go to a forest and suddenly you find you've gone far away from your car is not somewhere close by, and there is a lion chasing you. What do you do? What do you do? You run. Even if you've got a backache or a knee pain or whatever, nobody is going to stay there. In spite of knee pain, you will be able to run. You will run like hell, isn't it? You might be handicapped, but still you run. Who gave you this energy at that time? It came because of stress mechanism. God has created a mechanism of stress in which various things are secreted in your body. Can we have that slide on what happens in stress? What happens in stress is that when there is a demanding situation, challenging situation, the mind perceives it. The mind will perceive a situation as demanding or challenging. The moment the mind gives signals to the body, there is a auto nervous system called sympathetic nervous system, which will be activated, which is connected with your endocrinal system. Endocrine glands will all become active. And because of this chain reaction of the sympathetic nervous system, whenever there is a demanding situation, automatically these 3 or 4 things will happen. Number 1, extra sugar will be released in your blood by liver or whatever. Then heart will start pumping extra blood to the body. Why? Because the challenging situation has come in which the body has to give a particular response. And unless the body gives this kind of a response, the body will not be able to be saved. And that's why such a thing happens. So extra flow of blood. Then lungs also start working faster because extra oxygen is required. You need to purify the blood very fast, and that's why lungs will also start pumping faster. And the 4th thing which will happen is that there will be acid secretion, extra acid secretion in the stomach also. Why? Because you need to digest whatever food is available in the stomach so that that can be converted into energy which is used to cope up with a challenging situation. Are you clear about this? Okay. So the moment sympathetic nervous system is activated in the body, all these things happen. But what is supposed to happen is that after the demanding situation is over, in this case, after you go back to the rest house safely, after you've been able to avoid the lion, then your parasympathetic system should take over, which will relax the mind, which will bring the secretions to normal level instead of extra level. This will happen automatically. And then you are able to sort of have no stress. So stressful situation, relaxation. Stressful situation, relaxation. ये तो बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. There is no problem about it. જ્યાં સુધી આવું થાય ત્યાં સુધી વાંધો નથી. But what happens if in our daily life, what is actually happening is in our daily life, there is a demanding situation in everything. We have a demanding situation right from morning till evening. Can we see that slide about the demanding situation? External and internal. There are 2 types of demanding situation. Some people have got problems at office. One has got a very bad boss expecting you to work hard even if he is going out of the office. Very demanding boss, 24/7 cycle of work. Then again you will have stress throughout the day. Your mind will perceive it as a stressful situation. Or you may have a family problem. Somebody is unwell in the family because of which stress can be created. Or you can really have some financial problems, abject poverty. Not any one of us sitting here has that. But some people may have abject poverty also. But the most dangerous stress is the internal stress. Internal stress is very dangerous. It is a stress of individual targets to achieve. Individual targets to achieve. Ambition. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to have a helicopter of my own. I want to get a Mercedes car. I want to build a holiday home in a hill station. Never-ending desires, ambitions, targets for self. Now this also can create a lot of stress. The moment somebody comes in the way of fulfilling those targets, you become angry and the stress will come automatically. So the internal stress is the most dangerous compared to external stress. You can manage the external stress somehow. If the boss is bad, you can leave the job. But if you yourself, what do you do if your own mind is problematic? You can't go away from your problematic mind. Your mind is full of unnecessary ambitions. It may be necessary ambitions also, but sometimes even the legitimate ambitions kill you if you are not watchful about what is it that you are trying to achieve. It may not be a realistic thing, and so it can create a stress in you. So from morning till evening, we are all faced with various types of demanding situation, challenging situation, which we call as stress. So what happens when there is a stressful situation? Which system will activate? Sympathetic nervous system, endocrine system will activate. And all these things will keep happening. Acid secretion, sugar, extra sugar will be released into the blood. And over a period, what happens? Next. The increased BP is supposed to be heavy when you want to run away from lion, but if it is always heavy, the BP is high, then it will settle down as hypertension. Then you will have to take tablets for that, isn't it? If the sugar is secreted in your blood, only when required it is fine. But 24 hours, if there is an extra dose of sugar coming into your blood, what will happen? Diabetes, clear. Muscle joint stiffness, back pain, arthritis, all these are result of stress. And that's why we need to adopt yoga. In yoga, the practices of asana, pranayama and meditation are designed in such a way that in the daily routine of your stress, it gives you a respite. It allows your parasympathetic nervous system also to operate. And because of which, everything, all the functioning of the glands become normal in between. So the practices are designed in such a way. And that's why for stress removal, the best remedy is yoga. Okay? Clear this much? Okay. Let's understand how yoga works on your body. Can we have the Panchakosha? According to modern science, they only believe in the physical existence of the body. Only physical body. But according to the science of yoga, our existence, our being, consists of 5 different layers, of which only one is a body. Annamaya Kosha, that is a body, physical body, which we can see. The rest of them are subtle, we can't see, but they are there. The scriptures have acknowledged that a person consists not only of the body, but he consists of his Manomaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha. These are the 5 layers of our existence. And yoga works on each one of these layers of our existence. And that's why it is very powerful technique. Okay? Annamaya Kosha, physical body. What are these? Annamaya Kosha is the physical body. Pranamaya Kosha is the layer of prana. We'll talk more about prana, pranayam. We'll talk about. Then Manomaya Kosha, the layer of mind. Man, we'll analyze what mind is. Vijnanamaya Kosha, it is a layer of wisdom or lack of it. It can be lack of it also. One may not have a good Vijnanamaya Kosha. One may not have the wisdom required. So the Vijnanamaya Kosha is also part of mind. The mind, Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha in a way are connected. I will explain to you how they are connected. And finally, the layer of bliss in each one. Do you notice that some people are very cheerful always? They have got an aura which is so positive that you want to go and talk to them, you want to be close to them, you want to share some moments with them. Why is it so? Have you ever thought about it? It's because they have got a larger aura of Anandamaya Kosha. The Anandamaya Kosha is very big in them. So we have also to try to develop our existence from physical body level to the bliss level. We have to transcend the various layers of yoga, various layers of Panchakosha, and try to move from physical body level to the Anandamaya Kosha level. And that is where yoga helps. So the Panchakosha theory is fundamental to the theory of yoga. Okay? Next. Where does the stress begin? The stress begins in Manomaya Kosha, the middle one. And in Manomaya Kosha, when the stress begins, it will start affecting both sides. So what is next to Manomaya Kosha? On one side is Pranamaya Kosha, on the other side is Vijnanamaya Kosha. How does it affect? Suppose you are angry. What happens to your breath? It becomes very fast, isn't it? So which means your Manomaya Kosha is disturbed and it is now disturbing your Pranamaya Kosha. If you remain angry throughout the day, your Pranamaya Kosha will be affected totally And then your body will also fall sick over a period. So once your pranamaya kosha is not functioning properly, it will have an effect on your body. So the whole thing, the epicenter of the entire process is mind, manomaya kosha. On the other side, suppose if you are angry, can you have a better conscience? Can you have a better wisdom? No. In anger, you might insult your father also. You might insult your mother also. That is not wisdom. Is it a wisdom? No. So the Vijnanamaya Kosh is also affected because of disturbance in the Manomaya Kosh. And when there is no wisdom, when the mind is disturbed, when the prana is disturbed, where is the question of getting any bliss? So the layer of bliss, Anandamaya Kosha, is out of question. It will definitely be affected, isn't it? So this is the process of Panchakosha. And this is how the mind affects the entire existence. So mind is the central piece. It is a central villain of this entire thing. We need to do something about mind. Okay? Let me analyze the mind. Mind has got 4 aspects. Our mind has got, according to our scriptures, 4 things. Mind, intellect, memory and ego. These are the 4 different aspects of mind. The modern physical science will only talk about brain. Brain as a physical entity with some nerves in it, some memory cells in it. They are only talking about physical existence of a brain. But the science of Indian wisdom talks about mind in a very detailed way. Mana, buddhi, chit, ahankar. Mind, intellect, memory and ego. These are the 4 aspects of mind. Out of these, 2 are connected with Manomaya Kosha and 2 are connected with Vijnanamaya Kosha. So mind, which is the emotional mind. What is mind? Mind is the emotional mind. It is a mind which processes any information. If I see gulab jamun, I interpret it as good and I fall for it. That is emotional mind. That is mind. Mind and chitta. These 2 are connected with Manomaya Kosha. Means memory. The processing ability of the mind, please understand, and the memory function of the mind, they belong to Manomaya Kosha. And buddhi and ahankar, intellect and ego, they belong to the Vijnanamaya Kosha. So that's how Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha are interconnected. Am I making some sense? Are you all with me? Tired? Okay, I'll do some exercise, not now, after 5 minutes, okay? Ready for it? Okay, good. So we are talking about the functions of mind. So what is mind? Mind is the emotional aspect of mind. It is a desire. It is interpretation of a situation as favorable or unfavorable. That is mind. Emotional mind. You can call it emotional aspect of mind. That is mind. What is intellect? Intellect is the wisdom part of the mind. The mind says you must jump from above. It will be very thrilling. But the wisdom, the intellect says that you can't do any such thing. Right? Of course, some tamasic people, they make a distinction between intellect and wisdom also. Intelligence and wisdom. I got one joke in the SMS saying that getting up early in the morning and doing yogasan is intelligence. Getting up early in the morning and doing yogasan is intelligence, but not doing any such thing is wisdom. So some tamasic people also interpret wisdom like this. But actually, intellect is really the wisdom faculty. What should I do, what should I not do? The discrimination of mind is the intellect. Buddhi, Viveka Buddhi. That's why in Indian science we call it Viveka Buddhi. Buddhi may be interpreted as intelligence, but it is not only intelligence, it is Viveka Buddhi. Buddhi which discriminates between what is good for me and what is not good for me. What should I do, what should I not do? Certain things I should not do. That kind of a perspective we have, that is called intellect. Memory, what is memory? Chitta. Memory is storage of information. Suddenly, you remember that somebody had insulted you 30 years ago. This is all stored in the memory. And this chitta, unlike in the modern science where memory means memory limited to this birth, the chitta stores the karmas of your past birth also. The sanskaras, what we call sanskaras of the past birth, they come with us, packed with us in form of this mind. It is called Sukshma Sarir. We have got three types of body. Sthula Sarira, Sukshma Sarira, Karan Sarira. So the Sthula Sarira, the Sukshma Sarira, it comes with us when we take a birth on this earth. And that Sukshma Sarira, that black box which comes with us, is this storage of sanskara, which comes in form of a chitta. So certain sanskaras come to us from past birth also, and that is also stored in that memory. And that's why some children, right from beginning, they show a particular inclination, right? For example, Shankaracharya, he wanted to take renunciation very early in his life. Why? Because that Purva Janmana sanskar, enama hata mate. So it's possible, right? Some people they have a journey of spiritual enlightenment for several births, and in this birth, they come with that baggage of the past, which is positive, and then they get renunciation very easily, like as it happened in case of, say, Raman Maharshi or Ramakrishna Paramahansa, etc. They have evolved over last so many births, and then they come to this birth, and then they get renunciation. So this is what is moksha, right? Then ego, ahankar, that also is part of our mind, manomay kosha or vigyanmay kosha. Some people have got a larger ego, some people have got a smaller ego, and that ego hurts us all the time. One of the main causes of stress is also our own ego. Why did he tell me like this? Why did he not honor me? Why did he not tell me ki aao aao? Why did he not welcome me? There are a variety of issues we have with respect to our ego. And that's why it bothers us. And so we need to straighten our ego also. And the techniques of yoga are good for each one of this. So that's why they are beautiful. Let's go to the next one. Surprisingly, I think most of you should have known by now that yoga is not a technique of controlling your body. Yoga is not a it is not a technique of setting right your body. The benefit to the body which comes through yogasana or pranayam, it is only incidental. Please remember this. The primary benefit of yoga is on the mind. All the definitions of yoga points out at this fact. One such definition given here, Patanjali's definition, yogaha chitta vritti nirodhaha. Controlling the modifications of mind is yoga. The mind is like a monkey. It jumps from one thought to another. It jumps from one desire to another. It just wants to go here and there. It is not in our control. There are so many modifications happening. It is said that a person can have 60 totally unrelated thoughts per minute in a mind. 60 totally unrelated thoughts. It can happen. So many modifications in our mind. One moment we think like this, second moment we think something else. These are all modifications of mind. And we need to control them. And Patanjali's definition is very clear that yoga is a technique to control the modifications of mind. Next. Second definition is Vasishta, Yoga Vasishta definition. Yogaha mana prasamana upayaha. Mananu prasaman karvu enu naam yoga. Mananu prasaman karvu enu naam yoga. Okay? Okay? So quietening the mind, making it quiet, making it calm, that is called yoga. Next, the third definition is of Bhagavad Gita, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Yoga is a technique of maintaining the balance of your mind, equanimity, stability, balance, harmony, equipoise. How do you maintain a balance in your mind? That's the challenge. And that balance can be maintained if you are into yoga. And that's why learning yoga is very important. So Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. This is also a definition for mind. Does it ever say that yoga makes you beautiful? Does it ever say that yoga makes you flexible? No, no definition of yoga says that. The benefit of yoga to the body is only incidental. The main benefit is on the mind. Okay? Now, so why do we do yoga? Let's summarize. So far we have learned that mind is the main important thing. Can we go to the, yeah. Health and happiness, well-being is what we want. And happiness or health depends a lot on the mind, because it is in the mind that the stress is created and all the diseases are created because of stress. I'm just summarizing what we have discussed so far. And if mind has to be controlled, then there is no better technique than yoga. All the definitions point to that fact. And that's why yoga for wellness, the topic for today. Okay? Clear? What does yoga consist of? 4 things. Next. One is, of course, yoga asanas. You have all been hearing about this. Yoga asanas. Then breathing techniques, pranayam. Meditation is part of package of Raj Yoga. These 3 are part of the Raj Yoga. The 4 types of yoga, you must have heard about it. Today, we will restrict ourselves mostly to Raj Yoga, which consists of 8 parts actually, Ashtanga Yoga, 8 parts, but out of which the 3 important ones which people know about, asana, pranayam, meditation. We'll talk about that. Okay? And of course, it also consists of logical understanding of life. If you want full benefit of yoga, yes, asana, pranayam, and meditation can help you. But if you want full benefit of life, then you have to have correct understanding of life. So the element of bhakti yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, it will have to come in. Without correct understanding of life, your mind will keep on wandering here and there. The asana, pranayam may benefit you to stabilize it for some time. But the ultimate benefit of yoga comes only if you follow the philosophy of yoga, of how to live your life. And that's why the other parts are also important. Okay? Let's come to the asana. How many of you are doing asana? Okay, very good. Good. Most people do not know the correct technique of doing asana. So let's understand how to do asana correctly. Many people perform asana just like a physical exercise. The asanas are not designed like that. The benefit of asana is for what? For what? Mind. And if the benefit of asana has to come to the mind, the asanas are designed separately. You have to follow them. Can we have a small demonstration here? Can we have any? And both of you are coming? Yeah, you come. Come, both of you. I have a pair of brother sister here. Both of them are doing good asanas. So we have enough space for both the people. So maybe they can do it, So they'll demonstrate and we'll understand the technique of doing correct asana. I'm not going to show you all the asanas, but the correct technique of doing asana. Okay? There are 4 important points which distinguish yoga asana from a physical exercise. Four most important points which I have listed here. And they will show you how to perform asana correctly. Right? The first point is that asana is always done slowly. It is never done in a fast rhythm. Never. If you don't have time, don't do asana. But when you do asana, do it very slowly. The asana which is done fast is nothing else but physical exercise. It's acrobatics. So you are bending your body, but like an acrobat, which is not going to give you benefit of the mind. It can give you physical benefit, just as a physical exercise does. But it will not give you the benefit of mind, improving your mind, right? So, slowness is the first thing. Okay? Now, I'll ask, can you perform Ardha Kati Chakrasana? Okay? Just raise your hand on the right hand side first, right? Right hand side. Slowly, Ardha Kati Chakrasana, okay? They'll show you how to do Ardha Kati Chakrasana. Slowness. Okay, thank you. You can finish it. Okay. Now, what the message I want to give you is that the speed of doing asana is something which is connected with your mind. If your mind is speedy, your mind is fast, you want to do so many things in a day, then however hard you may try to do it slowly, the hand will go up like this. Why? Because the movement of the body is connected with your mind. And here, by doing anything very slowly, we want to put a brake on our mind. A lot of mental control is required whenever you want to move your body part very slowly. A lot of mental control is required. So the design of Yogasana is such that unless you do it slowly, the benefit of mind will not come. It will become a physical exercise. You can see the difference here between the speed of their mind. Whose mind is speedier? Om. Sorry? Apart from that, Om is a student of DIICT second year, so maybe he has a lot of burden on him. So he's slightly faster than any who is in the 12th standard and also following humanities, not science. 12th humanities. He's in the 12th standard in Delhi Public School. So that's first thing, slowness. Slowness of doing asana, very important. You can't do any asana like a physical exercise. Everything you have to do it very slowly. Whatever you do, whether you are bending backward or bending forward, bending sideward, whatever you are doing, it has to be done very slowly. Even a Surya Namaskar has to be done very slowly. Okay? Can you show one Surya Namaskar, both of you? Surya Namaskar, incidentally, is one thing in which 12 asanas are connected. So even if you do Surya Namaskar perfectly, yeah, then you can, so Sthiti, 1, 1, 2, Hastapadasan, Padhastasan or Padhastasan. 3. I'm just going a little fast because of the shortage of time. But if you do Surya Namaskar by remaining in each one of these pose for a longer period, the benefit will be lasting. Very good benefit. Asvasanchalanasana, one of the asanas. All the 12 steps have got one asana in each one, which benefits some part or the other of the body, and mind also, of course. 4. Very good. Look up, Om, look up. In Surya Namaskar, incidentally, you have to keep your eyes open. Unlike in all other asanas where you have to keep your eyes closed, in Surya Namaskar, you have to keep your eyes open because you are actually doing salutation of the sun. So you should be looking at the sun. So that's why. 5. Sasankasana. 6. Sastangasana. 8 parts, Sa Asta Anga. 8 parts of your body are touching the floor. The forehead, the chest, 2 hands, 2 knees, and 2 toes. These are the 8 parts which are touching the floor in Sastang. The torso has to be up from the middle in Sastang. So from the middle portion, it has to be up. 7. Bhujangasana. Bhujangasana. 8. Parvatasana. As far as possible, try to let your heel touch the floor. Heel should touch the floor. You can take your legs forward in case you want, but your heel should touch the thing. You can have smaller distance between your legs and hands so that your heels can touch the floor. That's the correct way of doing it. Okay? Parvatasana. Again 9. Sasankasana. 10. Again Asvasanchalanasana. 11. Padahastasana. 12. And Sthiti. Come back to Sthiti again. These 12 steps, including 2 Sasankasana, that's very useful. I've been trying this Surya Namaskar myself. Some people do Surya Namaskar without Sasankasana, the 5th and the 9th step. But I have found this Sasankasana to be very useful for your stomach. Very useful. So you can do Sasankasana also in the Surya Namaskar. So this 12 steps you can follow. The second point about the yoga posture is that you have to maintain your posture in the final position. So here we were in a hurry, so that's why I asked them to do it quickly. But whenever you reach the final position, whether in Sirsasana or Sarvangasana or Vakrasana or whatever you do, whenever you reach the final position, try to maintain that asana. The real happiness comes in maintaining the asana. Sthiram Sukham Asanam. That's the slogan Patanjali has given in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Right? The third thing is that you have to be aware of your body action, body parts, each one of your part. So your attention while doing your asana, your attention should remain on the body part which is being affected. Say for example, if you are raising the hand, the tension in the hand you have to feel. You have to be aware of the tension. At which place are you feeling the tension in your hand? You have to feel the tension. Be aware of the tension in your body. So that kind of awareness has to be maintained in the asana. The fourth thing is that after every single asana, you have to relax. Why? Because you have to train our mind to have sympathetic and parasympathetic both working one by one. When you stretch your body, When you are putting your body to a difficult situation, the sympathetic nervous system is activated. And immediately after that, you try to relax your body so that parasympathetic nervous system will take over. So you have to train your body and mind to stimulate, relax. Stimulation, relaxation. Stimulation and relaxation is the key of yogasana. You stimulate your body, relax it. Stimulate your mind, relax it. So in stressful situation, you may hear the scolding of a boss, but next moment when you go back to your cubicle, you will feel cheerful if you are doing yogasana. You have to train your mind like that. Yes, the stress is there in life. Everybody is facing stress. But how do you relax within 10 minutes of stressful situation? Immediately you should be able to relax your mind. Right? That's the practice yogasana gives you. That's why after every asana, one has to compulsorily relax. There are 4 types of relaxation. If you are doing a asana in supine position, you can do savasana. If you are doing it in prone position, you can do makrasana. In makrasana, you can relax. If you are sitting, you can do sithila dandasana to relax, sitting position asanas. And standing, you can show that sithil dandasana. Yes, sithil dandasana while sitting position, relaxation posture. This is the way to relax in sitting position asanas. When you are doing sitting asanas of sitting position, you can relax in this posture. And when you are standing, sithil tadasana. So just 2 legs apart, सावधान सावधान विश्राम position होती है ना जो parade में. So सावधान means both legs together, विश्राम means both legs apart. Your body is just hanging loose like this. So that is sithil tadasana, right? So you can relax after every asana. The 5th thing is ki in asana, unlike in a physical exercise, you have to be very careful about breathing coordination with the body movement. With the body movement, your breathing should take place, right? For example, can you just get up? Sorry, any norm. When your body is bending backward and when the chest or the stomach is getting compressed in any position, then you should exhale, right? Just so. So take deep inhalation, bend forward and exhale. While exhaling, you bend forward, okay? Do that, just show breathing coordination. Yes, exhale and come down. Exhale and come down. Very good. Then once you reach that position, normal breathing. Then you can have exhalation, inhalation both. Again, when you get up, when the stomach is getting expanded or the chest is also getting more space to breathe in, then you inhale. Okay, just get up, inhale and get up. So you do larger inhalation while getting up. These are some of the techniques. So your body movement and your breath has to be coordinated in yogasana, unlike in a physical exercise. Very important characteristic of asana. So these 5 points are very essential in performing any asana. Breathing coordination has to be there, awareness has to be there. Then you have to maintain the posture for a longer time and you have to go very slow into the final position. Very slowly you have to go there. So that even if you do 1 or 2 asanas in every position, it is good enough. But you choose and pick what suits your body. You can consult somebody who knows a little bit of yoga. But any asana is good for you. There are some contraindications, some sort of contraindications in case of certain asanas. So you have to be careful about it. And I would suggest that once you learn the technique, then which asana to be done for what benefit, उसके लिए तो ढेर सारी किताब पढ़ी है. Lots of books are available. So many books are available. You can pick up any one of them. And those who want a book in English, there is one book of Bihar School of Yoga, Asana Pranayam Mudra Bandha. All the asanas are given, pranayam techniques are given, Mudra Bandha. This is published by Munger, Bihar School of Yoga, right? It is called Yoga Publications Trust, Munger. Basically the people who run the Bihar School of Yoga. I believe there is a Gujarati translation of this available, which is done by some Kutch. Kutch wala ne kya karo? Kutch Bhuj mein, there is one yoga institute. They've got a Gujarati translation of this done also, the entire compendium. So if somebody talks about some asana, you can go to that page and see how that asana is performed, what are the contraindications, in which position you should not do it, how to go into that asana, everything is given here. So it's easy to learn after that, once you understand what is the basic technique all about, right? Come to pranayam. Okay, let's go to the pranayam now. The problem with our prana is, now what is prana? Prana is a source of energy. It is a flow of energy in our body. Prana is not only breath. Breath is only an outward manifestation of prana. Prana is energy. Prana is energy. It's a subtle energy in our body. And according to our science, this energy of prana, it flows in 72 lakh nadis of our body. 72 lakh nadis ma pran vahe che. Now the problem with prana is, some places it is blocked. There is a blockage in some places. Or the prana is going in a reverse direction. It is flowing in a reverse direction. Or it is too fast or too slow. All these problems are there with prana. And when the prana is constricted somewhere, when there is a problem in prana, in some nadi somewhere, the disease takes place. And that's why we have to adopt the correct technique of removing these blockages. The problem with prana is, now go back to the this one. What kind of imbalance is there? One is high speed. You've seen a dog breathing, how fast? Now, what is the life of a dog? Few years, 10 years, 10 to 15 years. The breathing is so fast, it cannot live for more than 10 years. But human beings are designed to live for 100 years, provided we have 15 to 18 breaths per minute. But most of us have got more than this. Why? Because we have a stressful life. So we have to stabilize the speed of our breath. It should be very rhythmic and regular. So various kinds of imbalance, high speed has to be brought down to normal. We have haphazard breathing, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. We have to make it rhythmic. It is jerky, we have to make it continuous. It is shallow, we have to make it deep. Full utilization of lungs. So the moment you do pranayam, your lungs become capable of inhaling in a full measure. And so there is a greater absorption of oxygen in the body, which makes it so much better for you. Okay? So that's the technique of pranayam. Next. So in pranayam, what do? We synchronize our breath with body movements. We exhale more than what we inhale. All of you must be knowing about Nadi Suddhi. Now in Nadi Suddhi, you inhale as well as exhale, right? The best proportion is 1:4. So inhale for 5 seconds and exhalation should take 20 seconds. I'm not saying 5 seconds. Whatever is the inhalation time, compared to that, exhalation time should be 4 times more. This is the correct way of doing pranayam. Inhalation से exhalation में ज़्यादा time लगना चाहिए. Okay? Slow down the speed. That's the purpose of breathing practices. And we want to develop a awareness of breath in our body. We want to feel the prana in our body. And that's why consciously, in a quiet surrounding, we do pranayam. And when we are doing pranayam, we can feel the prana moving in our body in various parts. That's the technique of pranayam. This is the purpose of doing pranayam. Okay? What are the breathing practices we have? Go next. The first step of pranayam is cleansing the lungs. Okay? And that's why Kapalabhati. Kapalabhati is not a pranayam, incidentally. Kapalabhati is not a pranayam. Kapalabhati is a preliminary cleansing technique. It is a Suddhi Kriya. In this, of course, Kriyas are not given, but one of the things in yoga, science of yoga, is 6 types of cleansing processes. Neti, Dhoti, Basti, Kapalabhati, Trataka. All these are 6 types of cleansing techniques. And Kapalabhati is one of the cleansing techniques for cleaning up your lungs before you do pranayam. Right? In Kapalabhati, what do? You have to only exhale, only expulsions, no inhalation. Inhalation will be automatic. In between, thoda to inhalation ho hi jayega, but you don't have to work for it. You have to forcefully exhale. How many breaths do you exhale? 60 per minute to begin with, not more than 60 to begin with when you are starting. But later on, you can rise up to 80, 100, 120, something like that. Right? 60 breaths per minute. And my suggestion to you would be, don't have more than 2 or 3 cycles of Kapalabhati. That's good enough. You don't need to overdo Kapalabhati. I've seen many people suffering because of excessive Kapalabhati. It affects your pancreas. So don't do excessive Kapalabhati. Just do 2 or 3 rounds of 1 minute, 1 round. In 1 minute, 60 cycles. Okay? Can we show Kapalabhati? And in Kapalabhati, when you are exhaling, how will you know that you are exhaling in the correct way? There will be a movement of your lower abdomen. Your lower abdomen will be flapping little bit like this, your lower abdomen. So watch that. Most people do Kapalabhati as Bhastrika. Now what is Bhastrika? Bhastrika will come in the pranayam technique. Bhastrika is inhalation as well as exhalation, both. Forceful inhalation and forceful exhalation, which is a different technique. It has a different benefit. But in Kapalabhati, you have to only keep on exhaling, right? Then the whole thing will become clean. Please, Kapalabhati, start. Whenever you are done, you can stop. Normal breathing after doing 1 round of Kapalabhati. Only exhalations, right? No inhalation. Inhalation will be automatic in between, thoda bahut. But keep on exhaling. Very good technique, cleansing technique. Then we come to the main pranayam. Next. There are so many techniques. Bhastrika, as I told you, inhalation and exhalation. Can you just so quickly? Inhalation, exhalation. You can do it also with the body movement. You know, this art of living people, those who are doing Sudarshan Kriya, they do it like this, right? Inhalation, exhalation with the body movement. You can do that. Inhalation, exhalation. Inhalation, exhalation. That's Bhastrika. Okay. Then we have Anulom Vilom, the main technique which Sri Ramdev Ji Maharaj has also been teaching everyone. In Anulom Vilom, you have to exhale first from one nostril, left hand nostril if possible. Inhale from the same nostril, exhale from the other nostril. Okay? Just show the exhale from the left nostril. Again inhale, close the left nostril and exhale from the right nostril. Again inhale from the right nostril, exhale from the left nostril. Again inhale from the left nostril, exhale from the right nostril. Okay, stop. So this is the way to do Nadi Suddhi or Anulom Vilom. As I told you, try and extend the period of exhalation twice at least, if not 4 times. So if you are inhaling for 5 seconds, your exhalation should take 10 seconds. Try to extend that period. Inhalation, exhalation. Okay? But the exhalation has to happen from the opposite side. Then again inhale from there, exhale from the opposite side. And you can use this mudra called Nasika mudra, this mudra. The middle 2 fingers are folded, these 2 fingers are together and your thumb is together. So you can use thumb to close your right hand nostril and the other 2 fingers to close your left hand nostril. But if you can't make it, doesn't matter. Just do like this. Fine. No problem. Okay? But don't find an excuse of not doing it. Do it, whichever way. Okay, then next is Ujjayi. You know the prana, the breath passes through your glottis, so you make a sound like that. Just can you show can you give them a mic? Ujjayi. Of course, you can learn from somebody. Ujjayi, I think let's leave it. I don't think we have time. Okay, so let's leave it. Then Sitali, Sitkari, Sadanta. These are the 3 cooling pranayams. In case if you have a problem of acidity, if you've got a hot prakruti, pitta prakruti, then probably Sitali, Sitkari and Sadanta will help. But in extreme cold weather, you don't do this. In summer, and in India most of the time it is summer, 9 months we have hot weather. So you can do Sitali, Sitkari and Sadanta. All these 3 are in the same group of cooling pranayams. Difference in technique, little bit. You can learn from somebody. So we don't have the time, so I want... then Brahmari. Brahmari is a very good technique. It really sends the echoes of the sound in your entire facial region. So you know, all your muscles, all your cells of the facial muscles, they glow when you do Brahmari and Omkara. Very beautiful techniques. Brahmari as well as Omkara, Pranavnad. Okay, both these are very beautiful. So for those ladies who want to look beautiful, it's a beautiful technique. Because you will have a natural glow on your face. If you do Brahmari and Pranavnad every day, natural glow. The last is Pranavnad, Omkara, the correct technique of doing Omkara. Let us learn. Om is supposed to be the verbal form of God, according to Patanjali. If God is there in a word form, it is Om, Omkara. But Omkara is scientifically designed in such a way that it has the right kind of effect on your body and mind. So what you have to do is that sit in a quiet place, sit in any asana, Sukhasan, Padmasan, whatever. Inhale very deeply, and while exhaling, 50% of the exhalation will happen with the sound of O, and the rest 50%, once you feel that all right, now you have already reached halfway in exhalation, you can't hold it anymore, then the rest 50% is close your mouth. O sound will happen with your mouth will be open, and then Ma sound will happen with your nose. Exhalation will be through the nose. Okay? So Ma sound comes out of nose, O sound comes through the mouth. So the mouth is open when you are saying O, and it is closed when you are saying Ma sound. Automatically Om will happen. Can you just... It should be equally divided, O and Ma. Om sound consists of A, U, Ma. 3 things are there in that. A, U, Ma. And these 3 represent Swapna, Jagrat, Susupti, the 3 states of our being. Swapna, Jagrati and Susupti. Deep sleep, dream state, and the awakened stage. All these 3 states are represented in A, U, Ma, and so we need to understand this Om and we need to do it properly. Okay, the last one, meditation. Not easy to do, not easy to do. Why? Because so long as your mind is full of ambitions and targets and daily schedule of activity, you would not have the mind to do meditation. You have to have quality of mind in order to go into meditation. So your life has to be properly restructured before you go into meditation. But still, the simple step to meditation is basically trying to focus on a single thought or on a single object. In Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi is there. So, Dharana is the focusing, Dhyan is effortless focusing, and samadhi is actually the meditation. Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi, there are 3 steps to meditation. But what you can do is you can relax your body. First of all, before you want to go into meditation, you can relax your body a little bit. You can have rhythmic breathing with awareness. So you can have some Nadi Suddhi, Anulom Vilom, few rounds, 5-6 rounds of Nadi Suddhi or Anulom Vilom. So, and try to take your mind along with your breath. So when you are doing Anulom Vilom, your mind should be aware of it. Then you can sit in silence try to be without any thoughts as much as you can. If you can't do it, some people can't even close their eyes. It's very difficult to close their eyes also. If you can't keep your eyes closed, try to stare at some figure. You can have murti of a god being focused upon, Om, picture of Om being focused upon, a lamp or whatever. Focus on something. But try to remain without thoughts in your mind. That is meditation. Just one single thought or one single object for thinking about, nothing else, no other thoughts. So try to avoid all other thoughts in your mind, which is a very difficult thing to do. Moment you sit for meditation, something will come to your mind. Okay? And then you can slip into effortless meditation. Once you have a longer practice of sitting silently without any activity, without any thought, your mind may go here and there. Try to bring it back to single thought. You can have a thought of Sachidananda Atma. You can think that my existence is Sat Chit Anand. I am a pure bliss. That can be the thought in your mind. Okay? So try to have effortless meditation. Next. Of course, the philosophy of yoga is also important, as I told you. Next. This is the last slide of my presentation, but very important. You have to have correct attitude in life. The stress arises also because of not having correct attitude of life. So Patanjali has a very good advice to give. He calls it Pratipaksha Bhavana. Pratipaksha Bhavana. This is what Patanjali has prescribed in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. You should have Pratipaksha Bhavana. What kind of a Pratipaksha Bhavana? Very simply put, it says that you should have friendship for equals. Those people who are equals, you should have friendship. Maitri. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. These are the 4 words he has used. Friendship for equals. Compassion for the less privileged. If some people are not so well to do, some people are suffering in life, some people are much less privileged compared to you, then you should have Karuna for them. Compassion. This is the correct attitude to life. Third is, you should have happiness for those who are ahead of us. There are some virtuous people in this world, and we should really have a feeling of happiness about it. How beautiful are those people? Gunthi Barela Gunijana Dekhi Hayu Maru Nritya Kare. We had an old poem, Gunthi Barela Gunijan Dekhi Hayu Maru Nritya Kare. So for the virtuous people, we should have happiness. कि कितने अच्छे लोग हैं, देखो ना कितने अच्छे लोग हैं. We should have that kind of attitude. But most people have got jealousy. And that jealousy kills us. We should not have jealousy for anybody. We should have happiness about people who are ahead of us. Because that will motivate you. If you are being jealous, it is destructive. It's not going to help you. And the fourth one is avoidance, upeksha. For those people who are difficult people. There are many difficult characters in this world. Instead of having avoidance, upeksha, most of us want to change them. That is the problem. Why are the politicians like this? Why don't we change them? In an attempt to change them, we waste our entire life. So Patanjali says, leave them alone, you do your job. You focus on your karma. If you want to save the democracy, just go and vote on the day of voting. That much it will be a big service. But if you try to change difficult people, those who are suppose corrupt people, Now that's none of your job. Yes, you can participate in the democratic process whenever you are asked to do so. But you can't really change the world. There are so many difficult people in this world, so many problematic people. The moment you have the agenda of changing the world, your mind will be in turmoil. So give up that agenda. This is what Patanjali says. Avoid. Upeksha. उनकी उपेक्षा करो. अपना काम देखो. Let's do our work. Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience. It's already too late.